Chapter 5. An Unusual Trial. Simon, James, and Harold proceeded through the door to the next trial, and as they did so, there was a flash of bright light, and they found themselves just outside a city that looked sort of familiar to Simon. Before them was a bridge over a body of water, where there was a highway on either side. The group looked around to attempt to ascertain what city they now found themselves in. "Wait, are we back outside?" Harold asked. "This is not St. Petersburg. The buildings are completely different here," Simon replied. "He's right," said James. "Look at this sign." Simon and Harold turned to look at the sign at which James was looking. It read, "Welcome to Star City." "Why are we in Star City? Why is the Arrowverse a part of this?" Simon asked with a note of upset panic in his voice. And the group heard that same voice from the one who seemed to be behind these events. "There are things that makes a trial such as this possible. The first is that since all realms within this portal are Agravanian in composition, anything fictional in your universe can be made real in these realms, as is the case in Agravania itself. The Arrowverse is a work of fiction in your world, but it can be made real in Agravania, the land of dreams and imagination. The second is that the story of the Green Arrow was one of your defining interests, one of those that have molded you into the person you are today. So why should not one of these trials relate to that? This trial is simple. You must protect this city from all threats that approach it. Notice that you are just outside the city. If any of these threats so much as enter the city, you will fail this trial and immediately die. You have 5 minutes to prepare. Use this time wisely," the voice explained. "What are we going to do? How can we stop these threats? What even are they? We don't even have our weapons," Howard asked, with a note of concern exceeding the slight panic that was in Simon's voice before. "We can summon our weapons, the ones within our souls," James replied. "We can do what now?" Harold asked him. "There's a sword in my soul?" "Yes. Deep within the soul of every sentient being is an armament reflective of the soul's character. In Agravania and its related realms, people can summon such armaments in their time of need. You must look deep within your soul to find it, and if your will to summon it is strong enough, it shall appear before you in physical form. Observe," James explained, and he raised his right arm to the chest level and chanted, "Appear now! Sword of time flow!" A small purple sphere of light appeared in front of his chest, and the sphere moved to his right hand, and then transformed into a one-handed longsword of the same color. The handguard was shaped like a crescent, bent towards the blade. Simon and Harold followed suit. Simon closed his eyes and searched his soul for the sword within. After what seemed like an eternity, he found the armament of his soul. It was a yellow sword with a hilt the same shape and orientation as James's sword. Just below the hilt were the words Gladius Unitas, which means sword of unity in Latin. As Simon opened his eyes, Harold chanted, "Come forth, sword of wisdom!" And an orange sphere from Harold's chest manifested into an orange sword in his hand. "Appear now, sword of unity!" Simon chanted with fierceness. "Okay, we have our swords, but how are they going to stop the threats approaching the city?" Harold asked. "I guess that's where I come in," said a familiar voice. Simon turned and saw it was Dan, with a purple compound bow in his hand. "My soul armament, the sword of utility, takes the shape of any weapon needed for a given battle. In this case, I thought a bow was appropriate. It can also transform other allies' weapons as well, but it can only affect the physical properties of them. It cannot turn weapons into a weapon with different abilities," Dan told him. "Sword of utility! Transform these swords into bows!" The swords that the other three were wielding transformed into bows of the same color as their swords, and a quiver of arrows appeared on each of their backs. A few minutes later, dark shapes could be seen coming over the hill on the other side of the bridge. They were spectre-like, like the time demons, though not quite the same. Feelings of despair and impending doom washed over Simon, and he could see that the same had happened to the others by the looks on their faces. These are Desperadons. They cause their prey to feel despair and fear unique to their targets, and force them to relive their worst memories, James told the others. So they're kind of like a combination of Dementors and Boggarts from Harry Potter lore, Dan said. In a sense, yes. Though when their prey is at the height of despair and fear, the Desperadon devours them. It's relatively quick and painless, though. Although regular arrows won't work against them. Only hope arrows can destroy them, which can be created from regular arrows by thinking of someone or something that gives you hope, James explained. Simon did as he said and thought of Jesus Christ in his mind as he fired an arrow at an approaching Desperadon. The arrow shined brightly in the dark until it made contact with the Desperadon, which disintegrated immediately. The group was momentarily in shock that it actually worked, and the approaching Desperadons seemed to stop for a moment as well. Then James shouted, "Let's get him!" The others cried out with him, "Ah!" James then fired an arrow into the air, which glowed a different color from the hope arrows. An aura surrounded the group. "James, what is this?" Simon asked him. "I created a time slowdown field with one of my time flow arrows. This particular one makes our enemies move through time slower. It was a gift from one of my adventures in Chronos," he replied. A great battle ensued in front of Star City. The group was taking down the Desperadons with great rapidity. "Stop!" came a loud commanding voice from among the Desperadons, at a point where only a few of them remained. "I propose we approach this differently. You are at a great disadvantage in terms of numbers, and I do not wish to waste any more of my forces. Let your leader battle me in a one-on-one fight to the death. If you win, my forces shall retreat." "Very well," Simon responded. "I accept your challenge." At that, a much larger Desperadon appeared before him. Simon could tell that this one was much more powerful than the others. "My name is Desperodius. I'm a Mega Desperadon and king of the Desperadons," he told them. "I am Simon Petrus, just a guy," Simon responded. Darkness enveloped Simon and Desperodius, separating them from everyone else. Simon kept trying to fire hope arrows at Desperodius, but he kept dodging them. "You cannot touch me. I can become your worst memories, as well as your greatest fears. Observe." He transformed into the two U.S. Navy chief petty officers that verbally chewed Simon out for saying something to someone the wrong way. At the time, it was a traumatic experience for him, and Desperodius was forcing him to relive it in real time. Then Desperodius became Simon's leading petty officer from the last part of his training in the nuclear power program. He was reminded that if he did not start trying harder, that he would have to stand in front of stars, which meant explaining himself to the command master chief of their side of the base. Lastly, Desperodius turned into Jenna's ex-fiancé, the guy Simon competed with to pursue a relationship with her. Desperodius, as the ex, berated Simon for his conduct then. "How are you not affected by all this?" Desperodius asked, dumbfounded. "For two reasons. The first is that every bad experience you've used against me here, I have moved on from. And even if I hadn't, so long as I believe in the power of God, I shouldn't have to feel any despair or anxiety. I'd hope the same for you, but I cannot let you reach this city," Simon explained, and he took a hope arrow and pierced Desperodius' side with it, and he disintegrated. The darkness cleared as Simon could see his friends again. The Desperadons immediately disintegrated without their leader present. Then the area around them began to crack and shatter. The group found themselves in a small room with only one door. The door read to Trial 3. Their bows reverted back to swords and then returned with them within them as small spheres of light. Another trial down, James said, and the four of them proceeded through the door to the next trial.